Hi, so in this video, I'll cover how to do a pull request reviews, and then at the last, we'll cover how you can take slight AI help in doing that. So when doing pull request review, first is the approach that how should you be approaching it. I think the best approach here is to first understand the bigger picture, that what is this change about and what are some critical components. And many of the PRs that you will see in the well-managed repos have these components of how the author should write the PR reviews. For example, here the author has to write whether this PR is about feature, bug, or other kind, and then why are they writing this feature sort of code. So that purpose is clear, then what sort of are the major changes. So this could be a good place for you to get started at why you are reviewing this code, and then go to individual sort of line by line and providing your tips. Or when sort of giving the tips or reviewing, make sure that it's very objective and you are not sort of commenting on the person, but rather on the code, like keep discussion there. And the third small tip here is that also make sure that you highlight the positive things that is done in the code and how it's helpful for the customer and all. I think that is really appreciated by the dev who is writing the PR. Now, what are the couple things that you should notice or pay attention to when reviewing the PR? I think the first and the most important part is the design. As a senior engineer, you might have seen how you write the code in your code base. So make sure that you bring that when you're reviewing the code, that do you expect this function to be class style, or it should be method, it should be only function. And in that case, like how should the function and the class name should be, if you have convention of using real world name that aligns with your customer, how they use the product. So make sure that it reflects there. Design choices could also be things like, should this code belong in your code base, or should you using some other library or some other code components that someone has written long back? And because you have been in the system, you are the reviewer, this falls on you to make sure that the code is being reused and we are not writing everything from scratch. So that's the tip number one, that is look for the design as the first thing. The second thing I'll say is the functionality. Like for this feature, for example, renew time is there. So for example, will there be stop time, pause time? Like what is the customer requirement there? Is this sort of code meeting that requirement? If I can take other example from here, for example, this code is about processing and indexing trending repos, then what are trending repos? And if we are processing this way, are we sort of leaving certain things up for being bad usage by, is there a way it could be abused? So make sure that you are sort of thinking about end-to-end functionality when reviewing the code. The third thing I'll say is the complexity. So a lot of time as we are writing the code, we end up imagining things that maybe there are edge cases, things could break there. But someone else can question and say that, okay, this is not required. Or maybe if there is a lot more complexity, then you might likely want to break the PR or maybe write more test cases. So make sure that you spend some time understanding the complexity and working with the developer in a way that if complexity could be avoided. The fourth thing here is comments. So the code should generally be well commented, but there is conventions around it. If there are a lot of comments, that means your code might not be easily readable enough. If your code is really good, well written, in that case, the comment should be very few, like doc strings and one line comment should be enough. In fact, many teams have this convention that you should not be writing more than one line comments. So make sure that you adhere to those things when reviewing. The fourth one sort of fifth one here is the style aspect. Now, in many companies, this differs a lot. For example, in Google, Microsoft, there is a style team for Python, for Golang, for other that will review. And their idea is that Google has well-written style guides and they try to enforce it. If your company does not have style guide, so maybe you can have a meeting, have a small agreed upon style guidance that you would want to follow, because you don't want a lot of back forth on style because people's views could differ. Or other thing is you could just take up the open source Python style guide and just follow that end to end. The sixth thing and the last one I would say is that a lot of things related to the code, sort of general hygiene. For example, making sure that it's documented, if you maintain design doc, or if you're a doc writer, informing them. Then there could be things around test. So make sure that test is all the time written, updated. And I think in general policy at Google and some other firms is that we don't review the PRs without the test. So make sure that you have either similar convention or you encourage developers to write tests. Now, as you have seen, there are a lot of things for developers to look into and to analyze when doing a pull request review. So how to go about it in a more structured way. And this is where you could take some of AI help. So for example, we have a tool called Archie AI that can help do a PR review. So this is some of the portion of this is generated by the tool Archie AI. So for example, when this PR was opened, it write a nice summary, which ideally an author writes, but here author could just tweak it and it adheres to the general specific best practices. For example, the title is less than 60 characters or 100 characters. It starts with explaining the why and then goes into the critical changes, that these are the changes in this particular repo. So once you start to understand the big picture, then it also provides cues to the reviewer that what should they pay attention to. So for example, there are some things which are blocker, like there could be case of this being abused, like infinite trending repos, and then some guidelines on what things they could consider as a code quality improvement, and then gives also certain code suggestions that could be used by reviewer and author. They're also ready to commit code suggestions here because this PR is closed. You will not see, but in other places you could directly commit these code to the PR. So this can be a nice help for you when you are doing PR review. And for most of small teams, this is pretty free to use. So you can just add your report to the PR reviewer for Archie AI, and then every PR that you open in that code base will be reviewed by AI, and that could help you save some time. So reviewer, for example, could spend their time on higher level things like design and other, while author could also just tweak the summary and not sort of have to write on their own. There are a lot of configurations here. For example, whether we should auto update the summary, there should be inline code suggestion, you can ask questions about the PR. So make sure you select the right one that is helpful to you. And then you could also get analytics, like as the PR is reviewed, like how much is the review time and other, how much time developers are spending. I don't have I have not merged lately, but you could see like graphs and all, throughput and other here. So hopefully this is helpful to you. Let me know if you have any comments and feedback.